Well, you wanted more, so I have more. This is getting hard. Thankfully, there are an awful lot of supervillains, and an awful lot of them have some pretty ridiculous weaknesses, so there's still more to talk about. And make sure to let me know your favorite weakness or the cheesiest villain in the comments down below. I'm Ron McKenzie LaFergie with Top 10 Nerd, and here is my Top 10 Supervillain Weaknesses, Part 3. Number 10. Brain Drain and his programmability. After barely surviving a falling meteorite, Werner Schmidt's brain and eyes were put into a robotic body by aliens. The procedure gave him the ability to control the minds of others. After many heists, he's eventually defeated by Squirrel Girl, who takes advantage of his outdated technology. However, she realizes that Brain Drain is only being evil because of his programming. After Squirrel Girl and her roommate upgrade him with modern technology, he awakes and reveals that he intends to turn over a new leaf, and he goes on to audit computer science classes. He had a lot of catching up to do. Number 9. Ruby Thursday and her inability to turn her head human. Ruby Thursday is a really weird villain whose head was replaced with a mass of organic circuitry. This lets her change her head into various things and even fire energy blasts from it. While this is useful, Ruby Thursday can't change her head to a human's, which makes her stick out like a sore thumb, and unable to go around in the real world. She often acts extremely seductively, which might actually work, especially against some of the more horn dog superheroes, plus she's got a pretty killer bod, but it's hard to seduce people when your head is a big red ball or a giant pair of lips. Number 8. The Ventriloquist and his disagreement with his dummy. Arnold Wesker, the ventriloquist, commits crime with his gangster dummy Scarface, named after Al Capone. Wesker developed dissociative identity disorder after seeing his mother killed by thugs, and began treating the dummy as his other identity. The dummy side of his personality was skilled at criminal strategizing and carries a small Tommy gun, and while these two generally work fairly well together, there are times where they disagree. Rather often, their arguing ends up leading to their defeat, making this a pretty important weakness. As a side weakness, Scarface is unable to pronounce the letter B because the ventriloquist has trouble making a B sound without moving his mouth, which is pretty unfortunate when you're fighting Batman. Number 7. The Laughing Bandits and their gluttony. While supervillain may be a bit of a stretch for these guys, they showed that their greed extended particularly to tasty treats, namely fruit pies. These bandits would spray people with laughing gas and steal from them while they were incapacitated. One day they tried to steal some pies from a merchant. Unfortunately for them, as they went to take the pies, he revealed himself to be Superman and he caught them. This was such a ridiculous story, partly because the bad guys were defeated because they loved treats, and partly because it was an ad for Hostess. They literally said things like, "Boy, I love these Hostess fruit pies. That's because of the light creamy crust. Yum! Maybe it's because of the real fruit filling." Speaking of which, Hostess, the tasty snack that will hopefully give me money for plugging them. Number 6. Microwave Man and the fact that he was going to die anyway. Louis Paget was a scientist who gave himself superpowers using microwaves, and of course became a supervillain. Seriously, why don't most of these people just pull one heist then live in luxury forever? I don't get it. Anyway, Microwave Man is eventually invited by aliens to explore the galaxy with them. When he returns to Earth, he goes to battle Superman and does pretty well since his powers had grown from his time in space. Superman devises a way to send them back in time to the time when Microwave Man wasn't so powerful. But he's messaged by the aliens saying Microwave Man was going to die after the fight anyway, so Superman just let him win so he could have a fun last hurrah. And then he died. Honestly, it'd be kind of a funny trick to just be like, yeah, you should definitely let him win, Superman. He's gonna die anyway. He's totally gonna die. Just let him win, it's fine. Psych. Number 5. Devil Hulk and his lack of friends. Devil Hulk was introduced while Bruce Banner was venturing into his own mind to get rid of Guilt Hulk. After Banner refuses to make a deal with Devil Hulk, he is later awakened and escapes from the prison within Banner's mind due to the experiments of John Riker. It looks like Devil Hulk might gain control, but Banner makes a deal with the other Hulks, Savage, Grey, and Professor Hulk, and together they defeated Devil Hulk, forcing him to remain behind the scenes in Banner's mind. Devil Hulk seems to be the strongest version, at least mentally, as it takes the power of several Hulks to hold him. Luckily, he's kind of a dick and has no friends to help him, because otherwise there's a good chance he would start wrecking havoc in the real world. Number 4. The gambler, whose weakness was also his greatest vice, gambling. Stephen Sharp III took to crime after his girlfriend ran off with another man who had just won a bunch of money. Unlike a lot of villains on this list, the gambler was actually pretty competent, having developed skills with guns, throwing knives, and disguises during his time at the circus. He was one of the founding members of the Injustice Society. However, as his name suggests, the gambler isn't the most cautious person, even taking to standing next to his own wanted posters to draw attention. These daring and stupid actions led him to being defeated many times. But what eventually caused his demise was losing all his money in a rigged casino. Crushed by this defeat, he killed himself, leading his granddaughter Rebecca to a life of villainy as Hazard. Not only was this a fitting death, but it was a pretty good public service announcement about the dangers of gambling addiction. Number 3. Absorbing Man's weakness is also his power. He takes on the properties of any material he comes into contact with. Given these powers by Loki, the criminal Carl Creel then went out to wreak havoc with his new powers. Now, this ability is often useful and rather versatile, allowing him to even combine certain materials, but this power does have certain drawbacks and often leads to his defeat. For example, he was once tricked into absorbing the power of what he thought was Thor's hammer, but which turned out to be a cardboard replica of the hammer. Or by tricking him to turn to water, which apparently messes with his brains. All in all, even though he's actually a pretty cool villain, his power is also a huge weakness. Number 2. The Blob and his head. Fred Dukes is a mutant often fighting against the X-Men whose mutation granted him incredible mass, which gave him super durability and strength. While he is pretty darn tough all over his body, his face lacks this protection, leaving him vulnerable to attacks to the head, eyes, and ears, as well as to psionic and psychic attacks. Basically, if you're fighting the Blob, aim for the less blobby parts and you'll be fine. Although he was depowered in the Decimation event, so now you'll be really fine. Except you may be emotionally scarred by how he looks now. Ugh. Number 1. Russian Zod and the Yellow Sun. This third incarnation of Zod was the son of 2 Russian cosmonauts whose ship was too close to Kal-El's spaceship, giving Zod Kryptonian radiation poisoning. This gave him incredible powers when under a red sun, but in a weakened state under a yellow sun. Basically the opposite of Superman. When he tried to turn the sun red and take Superman's place, he was thwarted by Supes and Lex Luthor, with Lex saving Superman with a blast of yellow solar radiation. As Zod goes in for the final attack at super speed, the sun turns yellow and yeah, definitely a weakness. That's it for today. If you haven't already, please make sure to check out parts 1 and 2. Sasha Wood did part 1 and she's way better than me, so you'll like that one. If you want to see more, feel free to like and subscribe down below, and hit the bell icon so you can be notified when we post more videos. Until next time, I'm Ron Mackenzie LaFergie with Top 10 Nerd. Later, nerds.